All right, everyone. It's Friday. Welcome to another episode of Q&A with Alan and Marshall. I'm Marshall Atkinson.
I'm Alan Howe with Easy Way Systems.
And we have a special guest today. Alan, who is this character?
We have Marshall's father on with it. No, I'm kidding. I am so excited, Marshall. This was last minute. Everybody listening, we were talking, we all should have been or close to going to Print United. It was canceled. And during that time, Marshall and I have talked. We are members of a group called the Academy, which is an honor to be part of. And we thought, let's get somebody from the Academy on. And so I am so excited to have Andy McDougall, our partner up in British Columbia, Canada. And, Andy, I'm real thrilled because when I met Andy, I knew him he is a master at printing flat stock gig posters and also industrial, working with Atma on machines. But Andy's passion is teaching and some things he's been doing up in Canada. And he's gotten into podcasting. We have a lot to talk about. So Andy, thank you for coming on last minute. One of the people that truly honored to be in the Academy with. And I know you've been in it longer than Marshall and I.
You don't know me that well, then.
No. I know enough. I know people that know you well, but yeah, no, truly honored.
Well, I'm sure happy to be here. I got up this morning. I was actually pretty excited, and it's cool to be able to reach out. In this COVID world, we're under quasi lockdown up here. I don't know what's going on where you guys are, but all this technology is really made it a lot better, I think, in many ways. And here we are.
Right. So let's say hello to some folks watching, and then we can get going with the rest of the show. So If you're watching right now, we would love it if you would say hello. Let us know where you're watching from. We want to say hello back. Also, don't forget, this is a Q&A show. So now you've got somebody that you don't know maybe to ask some questions. We're going to get into lots of really fun topics today. So get your questions lined up for Andy, and we can get those answered. And also, if you would do us a huge favor, and if you would share that you're watching the show right now, we would really appreciate that because we're always trying to build our audience. And we have a surprise guest, so maybe just share that Andy McDougall's here, and he is surprised we didn't really market this really well because we just kind of lined this up the other day. But anyway, if you would just share that he's here, maybe we can get some more viewers, and that would be great.
Absolutely. So
we want to say hello to some folks. So Charles from New Mexico is here. Good morning. Keith is here. Good morning from Kyle, Texas. I just got off the phone with her a little while ago, so good to see you here.
And you know what, Kisa, you're making a name. I got a message from one of the people in our companies. Your purchase of the dip tank, and they said, "Man, that's going to be a great account." So I don't know what you did, but yeah. So
she's awesome. So Dave Eggers is here. Good morning. Our buddy Richard's watching. Hello, Andy. Greetings.
You're in trouble now, Andy. I think you and Richard have some history.
Joanne's here. Good morning. Love
from
listening.
Michigan, from Port Huron.
Peter Babcock's here. Good morning.
Yep.
Frank from SNS Activewear. Good morning from Houston. Go Astros. Rob Coleman's watching. Wide open in Georgia. Come on down. The water's fine.
Rob is with NASDAQ. Yep.
Keith Burwell from California. Good morning. Josh Wiley's here from Oklahoma. Good morning, guys. So
wow.
Thanks a lot for watching. We appreciate y'all. And I'm going to run the commercial real quick because we got a lot of stuff to cover. So
and it's going to be great. But yeah, we don't want to forget Graphic Solutions.
So we want to thank our sponsor, Graphic Solutions Group, for sponsoring our podcast or show, whatever the hell this thing is.
Whatever we do.
And thank you so much. And here is a short video. Awesome. So that's going to be an earworm for you this whole week, Andy, is that song.
If you had a cell phone, that would be your ringtone.
Yeah, well, there's another reason why I don't have one. No, let's be nice. GS, I know those guys down in Texas. I got quite a lot of friends that are in the gig poster operation down there in Austin and Houston and all around. And yeah, they use GSG for lots of stuff.
Good company, man. They're on the move. We're excited to be partnered with them.
Cool.
All right. Cool. So let's get started with what you do, Andy, because mainly everybody here is in the apparel decoration world, and maybe they haven't crossed paths with you yet, and they should. So let's just kind of start with just an overall of kind of what you do up there in Canada all the time, and we've got all your websites and stuff loaded, so you can take the floor and kind of like share with your background and what you're all about.
Well, what do I do? Today, my main thing today is to do a quote on a 22 color art print that a fellow wants to do up here. And I'm definitely going to go for a motorcycle ride because it's not raining today. So that's one of the other things I like doing. I watched my beloved Canucks lose last night, so I'm in a little bit of a bad mood, but it will be better when the full team, it's all preseason right now. Now, I don't know if you guys know hockey, but it's religion up here. So
I'm in Detroit, so it's.
Well, yeah.
Grew up in Michigan.
Hockey town, isn't that?
Hockey town, absolutely.
Hockey town, there you go. No, what do I do? I'm I call it semi-retired. I ran a place called Watche Studio the last 7 years, and we're a screen printing shop in a thing that's called a friendship center, and we work with First Nations people. And we're just an operation there that we try to provide employment, and it's a nonprofit. And so anything that we make in it gets plowed back into the facility. And we run a lot of programs, a lot of teaching programs for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then the place itself has we just actually put in an automatic in the last year, upgraded. We got a new dryer. We got a whole bunch of new stuff. And the business is it's almost doubled in the last year, the volume of stuff we're putting through there. We got 7 people working. And so I'm not, the beauty of it is I don't have to do payroll. I don't have to do quotes. I don't have to do the day-to-day. I don't have to be there to open it. I don't have to stay to close it. I've got a great young lady took over from me. A good little story too. She came to work at the center, and they were giving her a tour around. This was about 3 years ago. And they brought her back into the back, and we've got it's a nice little studio, and nobody would expect it right in this place. And so she walks in, she takes one look around, and she goes, "I want to work here." And so it turns out she's got a degree in printmaking and in art from Queen's University in Kingston. And so she's got this background and this love of art and printmaking. And she's just revolutionized how things are done there. This old guy, I mean, I needed to get kicked out of there is what it came down to. So she's really got it humming along, and the business is going great, and we're pretty excited. We're trying to one of the things we're trying to do right now, I've been reaching out to some of the ink people because we want to up our game on our inks, and we're 100% water-based shop, and because we work with kids, we use a lot of I know it's probably you're not supposed to mention it on here, but I've worked Speedball for years, and we use Speedball in the flat stock side of it, and a lot of the schools use it because it's easy to clean. And but we still continue to use it for certain things, but we gotta up our game. So that's a thing that as far as learning goes, that's going to be a big learning curve for us.
Sure.
Luckily, with all the people I know, we're getting lots of good advice on it. The biggest issue is supply. We can't get Aviant, we can't get Matsui, we can't get Virus, we can't get any of the better inks up here in Canada.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
Well, it is what it is, and we're looking at. We've been talking to some people down in Oregon, and we'll ship it up here. It's no big deal.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know what else. I mean, I do what comes along. I try to stay entertained and happy.
Yeah. Well,
that's great.
I think one of the things too, Wache, you had just started that when I first met you, and it's so cool to see it growing to where you have trained someone else to take it over and do it. And I think when we say First Nation, I remember the first time talking to you when I said, tell me what First Nation people are. And you said Indians. I go, oh, American Indians. And Andy goes, no, that's a USA term. So that's what it's First Nation, the people that were here long before us. And yes, in American culture, we have that. And your area, Andy, is a lot more rural. I've been to British Columbia. I've been to Vancouver, but you're actually not even right in Vancouver. You're on Vancouver Island, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. If you pull out an atlas, go halfway up the island, and we're in what they call the Comox Valley. Yep. Comox Nation, First Nation. This is their traditional territory. Mm-hmm. And the Comox name is kind of a bastardization of the original Quack spelling, but it is a little bit different politically. This area was not settled until the mid 1800s, and when the first white settlers came here, First Nations people kind of welcomed them and everything, and then everything kind of turned bad, and we've gone through 150, I don't know how many years. And things are finally changing around. But one of the really interesting things is in the United States, I mean, there was wars of conquest against First Nations tribes. Here, representatives of Queen Victoria came in and they said, oh, come on, now let's make a deal. Here, let's sign this treaty. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. So everybody signed treaties. Well, that was the basis of the law here. That was the basis of everything. Well, now, 150, 160, 180 years later, starting to look at these treaties and going, hey, wait a minute, excuse me, we still own half of downtown Vancouver. And so there's a lot of this going on of not only reclaiming the land and the rights to the land, but reclaiming the culture too. And from my perspective, I mean, I've known a lot of First Nations people through the years. There's a lot of wrongs that have to be righted here, and sure. We're trying to move forward on all that stuff.
And you're doing that, I know, in the rural areas, like not just with Wache, but you're also into the rural areas of British Columbia on the main part too.
Yeah, that's a fun thing that we started this a number of years ago. I used to do a lot of training. Well, I still do a fair bit of training, but I mean, you guys do it too. Like if you're going to go do something, everybody has to either come to you or you need to go to them, one or the other. Right. And so it gets hard in smaller communities for people to get out, and now especially with COVID. So we started a couple of years ago, started working on putting an online training program together. And this is not, I mean, I'll say it. It's not like Ryanette in that, he's trying to start people out, or he was, he probably still is. All you guys starting people out to be in hard business. And what we're looking at is starting kids in schools, high schools or elementary schools, or an artist in a community that wants to, they want to put their image onto a shirt. They want to make some art prints. They want to make a poster. They want to make stickers, all these things that people who have the art streak in them want to do. And so we have a number of things that you can build. We've got a vacuum table. We've got a whole bunch of stuff that you can build in a shop, really easy. And sure, it's hokey, but it does the job and it gets people going. And so we have this program where we take 10 applicants, and there are people that already have an art program going, First Nations people. And so they're up in Haida Gwaii. We've got people up in the northeast of the province. They're in a different time zone, all over the place. And so they're in very rural communities, a lot of them. And so we send them the whole kit, and then 2 days a week, we lead them in 10 lessons over 10 weeks, or these week-long lessons, to learn how to print. And we start them out with a screen that's already made, and just give them the basics of it. And we've had some really good successes, and we're into our third round now. And some of the people the work that they do is already really good. And they're super excited about learning this, because they understand that, instead of making single things, I can make multiples.
Yeah.
And it allows them to, in some of these smaller villages, there's nothing going on. There's really, truly nothing going on. And so, like, if somebody's, say they're a carver, they have to send their work to Vancouver to get sold. It gets sold once, and that's it. So if they could make a bunch of art prints of that, they can do that. And then as tourism comes back, you get more authentic work being done. And so that's the gist of it. It's a lot of fun. The people that I work with, a lot of younger guys and women, they're just so enthused. They got tons of energy.
So, Andy, are you helping them like build an online store and stuff, or are you just with the craft of printing?
That's actually part of it. We call the program Art for Entrepreneurs. And so we teach them how to do flat stock. We teach them how to print on wood. We teach them how to print on textile. And then we have a couple of modules where they just basically, they can calculate the cost of a job, like how to figure out the cost of a job. We show them how to go about getting an Instagram page. And we give them a little bit of background about how to, set up a proprietorship, or, the different legalities. And then there's basically a whole thing on copyright and owning your designs.
Good.
It's a really big thing here. There's a lot of ripoffs, not only of the First Nations art, but I mean, out in the world, you've seen it.
There's a great website called Artpreneur that has a lot of legal, copyright, trademark articles and guidelines and stuff. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's fantastic. And so cool. So let's get into your podcast and what you're doing with that. So you've got a podcast. I have a podcast. Alan has a podcast. Oh, that's right. He doesn't have a podcast.
I knew this was going to happen. I hate this topic.
So you have a podcast on Screenprinting magazine, and let me share that real quick. So just kind of, I'm sharing the screen here. So why don't you talk about some of these episodes? This is kind of a new thing, and that you're doing, that Screenprinting is doing, and so kind of lead us through what's going on with this.
Well, I mean, it came out of the demise of the physical magazine. I was their columnist for years and years and years, and cryptic comments on the back page. And as they evolved to just an online presence, Adrian said, "Hey, would you be interested in trying to do a podcast? You know, all these crazy people. That might be pretty good." And so it's kind of funny, because one of the young ladies at work, our head printer, about 2 years ago, she said, "Hey, you should do a podcast. I can't find any podcasts on screen printing." And I told you this earlier. I don't have a cell phone, so I don't know shit about podcasts. And so I listened to a couple, and I got a friend of mine who does one. And so I asked him some questions, and he gave me some answers and stuff. And then Adrian's been great. She's really supportive, and the group. There's a couple of engineers that do the work after we do the recording. So we started this out with I'd been doing a series of articles on the use of screen printing in electronics and medical, and I
Awesome.
hooked up with this guy in England, Martin Peacock, and Martin was just fascinating guy, and we were corresponding, and then it came up that I was going to do this podcast, and I said, "You want to try and do this?" And he said, "I'd never done it before," and I said, "Well, I'd never done it before." So, and then the weirdest thing is, I live in a village called Royston on Vancouver Island.
Mhm.
This guy lives in a place called Royston in England,
Yeah.
and so
That's great.
it was pretty cool. So anyway, he told me all about using screen printing to make rapid testing devices for COVID.
It's awesome.
And he was very involved in developing the rapid test strips for diabetes, which kind of revolutionized the management of diabetes.
Mhm.
And so he and another fellow that he'd met while he was at a conference or something like that, from Norway, they decided they were going to do a little company. And he said they started it with $250, and they got something like 60 employees now, and they consult and manufacture for people all over the world. But they have a rapid testing device that's a breathalyzer. It doesn't use saliva, so it's taking right from your lungs, and so that's the one thing that we were talking about, and he shared a little bit about that. Now that's almost a year ago, so I haven't really talked to him since then. Some of the other people I talked to, I have this great friend Gemma, who lives in Barcelona, and she's from the flat stock side of things.
Right.
And I've been to a number of the flat stock shows in Barcelona, and stayed with them and friends of theirs, and got to work in their studio. It's a small boutique studio in Barcelona, and really got to see the not the seedy underbelly of the city, but the real part of the city. And we just had a blast. So I wanted to talk to her because a couple of things. One was Brexit.
Mhm.
Brexit has upset the flow of poster work. Stuff that would come out of the US which would generally go to England and then be distributed into Europe. So what's happened is people are jumping that because of the tax situation, and now they're going. So she has started to get jobs from artists or tour companies or whoever are giving her jobs directly now in Spain. And then we talked about, with the demise of all the live shows, which is where the money comes from in the flat stock industry, what are you doing now? And so from her perspective, what happened was, because they shut so much stuff down, a lot of people who wouldn't usually do art started doing art. So they had lots of tattoo artists getting into it. And it's kind of funny, but one of the things that came out of it is, because when I was there, and I think it's part of the culture when you're in Europe, you go out every night. You go out, you eat on the street, you stay up and you do this, and then you get up and you work the next day. Well, because they couldn't go out, they started saving an incredible amount of money. Partner, and they're to the point where they're actually going to buy a facility. They want to live upstairs and have a shop in the downstairs.
Yeah.
So that's a unexpected benefit. It's kind of cool.
Very cool.
That's interesting that the cost of a building is dinner out.
Well, in Europe, I know
multiplied every day.
I know when I was in Portugal, dinner is not just dinner like we do here. We have dinner. It's 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever. We're done and everything's done. In Europe, going out every night, dinner is a production. It is everything, and it is long, and it's all about the community and stuff. It's unreal.
It's like when we're together at a trade show, when we go to dinner, it's like that.
And it's every night a little bit. I remember with the guys from I was with, they go, yeah, I'll have dessert and coffee, and then they went, no, dessert first, then coffee. there's a pattern to it and a way to do it.
Yeah.
It was incredible. So it's 2.5 hours minimal, but it's all about who you're with and enjoying the moment. So
Yeah. So the next, those were the first two, and then we just did a series. We got one more coming out next week, I think, on the 13th or the 11th or 13th, and it focused on screen printing and maker spaces. And maker spaces, I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but these are facilities that are popping up all over the place that they'll have all these different fabrication. They'll be like metalworking. They'll have, and so they have really good tools available, and essentially they allow the community to come in and make things where normally you wouldn't be able to, produce something at that level. And so the makerspace movement is worldwide. I think personally, and because this is what attracted me to screen printing, was the making of things. I was a graphic, not a very good one, but I was a graphic designer before I got into screen printing. And I was just, after selling car parts for 2 years, to start making things with my hands was fascinating. And so I think in North America and in Canada, I know for sure, we really got it rubbed in our faces about globalization and bringing in, like, closing down all your local manufacturing and then importing everything from China or wherever because it's cheap. Well, how'd that work out for you?
Yeah.
And so we have to get, whether it's more expensive or not, we have to get back to making things in our local communities. And trying to source food, trying to source products, trying to source clothing, all these things. We don't need to buy it from Amazon and make Bezos rich enough to fly into space. We can buy it from a local, somebody local. But it follows you have to be able to make it there. And I know, the trades, people, they're not coming into the trades anymore like they should be, but there are all these creative people out there. They got great ideas, but maybe they don't have the resources to get that idea out of their head and make it into an object and then refine the object. I mean, that's what it always comes down to, is you got to make your prototypes and then you got to keep going. So these maker spaces are great. So we talked to a couple of people over in Oslo that and the cool thing about all of them is they start from screen printing.
Oslo's in Sweden, right?
Norway.
My bad.
Yeah. And
so I want to interject here. Don't forget, if you've got a question, this is a Q&A show. Yeah. So please leave a comment or write a question for us or Andy, and we'd love to get that answered. So this is fascinating stuff. And I was just thinking to myself, I haven't seen one question yet, which is so unusual.
Yeah, I'm sitting there listening. I was thinking too, because Andy, you're going to get to also how a lot of these things are.
Hey, look who's here.
Look who's here. Wow.
Oh, bonjour, Michelle.
How are you doing, Michelle? So good. Wow. Because Andy, we're going to talk about a lot of these are starting to overlap. While this is mostly garment decorating, this is an overlap. A lot of times we're seeing more and more of these segmented parts of screen printing overlapping. And when everybody's looking for different markets, different products, this is something to keep an eye out on.
So Andy, why don't you talk about, flat stock printing and textile printing, and a lot of the techniques and what we think about, is kind of the same, but it's different. And how you can design for that and how you can think about that. Because I think the majority of the folks watching are, they're t-shirt printers or in that area a little bit. So why should they consider thinking about that and maybe dipping their toe in that water a little bit?
Well, there's a couple of differences. Flat stock printing, we usually work with a vacuum table. And whether you're printing manually or with assisted automation, the vacuum table holds the paper down, The other big difference is that instead of printing all the colors at one time, one after another in sequence, because you can't re-register a shirt, we re-register the paper. And so we'll run, if it's 100 run, we'll run all the yellow, and then we'll run all the red and run all the black. You go through, let it dry, and then bring it back in and run it. So those and the inks obviously are different, but that's true in screen printing.
Correct.
Whether you're printing flat stock or you're printing on metal, you're going to use an ink that wants to stick to it and perform on it. And I think that holds true in textiles. So all the things for people that are in textile, if they want to switch to printing, the other part of it is that you can't really use plastisol on paper.
No.
So this whole idea of ink drying in the screen sometimes is a bit now the water-based printers out there in textile, they know this problem,
right?
But so what you have to do is just learn to get ready, and make sure your make ready is all done and you're ready to print. Turn the phone off. You don't want to be distracted.
Yep.
And when you start, you want to have everything ready to go, and then you want to run the job and finish the job. You don't stop halfway through to take a call or go take a dump or go eat lunch. Otherwise, you got to rip everything down and clean the screens. So I think that's the biggest change in the two things. Between printing fabric and printing flat stock. But what I think is cool about flat stock is that, the paper is probably the easiest thing to do, to make a poster, make a piece of art, make a card, make something like that. But then as you start to expand on that, we can, like there's a poster we did down at Impression Long Beach. So we printed that live down there, and we had all sorts of textile people coming up going, "What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Transfers?"
Go ahead, Andy. Say it like you call us. What do you call us? Textile
Textilians.
People? Textilians. Yep.
No, but I am one now.
Yes, you are. Yep.
So, but I think it's when you go further than the paper, like up here in BC, we have wood. I love printing on wood. Printing on wood looks so beautiful with prints on it. And I think that it's for tourism, it's a perfect product, because there's places in this world, they don't have wood lying around. Like here, they burn it. They burn scrap all the time. Maybe not as much with all the cost of lumber gone up, but the point being, you can take a little square of wood. Where are we here? This big, this by this. You put a one color print on that, you just made a $20 or $30 bill.
Yeah.
And it travels so well. You do a poster, it gets crushed on the way. Maybe a shirt. Yeah, I'll give you a shirt. It's pretty good. But if you look at, it's an interesting thing. If you look at all the big touring bands, they would have their merch tables. And back in the day, they'd be selling T-shirts and hoodies and all this crap. You think of how much space 1,000 or 2,000 hoodies or T-shirts take up, and how you got to move it into the venue, set it up, sell it, all that crap. You can take in 1,000.
We just lost him. So what he was saying is, so I worked in the music industry.
All right, back.
You with us, Andy? You might have to unmute. So I've had that happen. We're going to blame the Canadian internet.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah. So, what he was saying, and I worked in the music industry for merch. When you bring 1,000 hoodies, 1,000 shirts, and you know how many cases that is. When you do 1,000 posters, it is small. And then that, Marshall, that poster you had, Andy was at Impressions doing an Aaron Draplin print, and Rick Roth and Brett Bowden brought him in. And it was just, it's a 2-color or 3-color print.
It's a 2-color print. I watched him print it. I talked to Andy at the thing, and I was all about, what's going on here. And they were raising money for the Surfrider Foundation.
Yep.
And so it was real interesting. And he had a booth right before the rock Ryanet area, and
Yep.
so it was right there. And so I had a really good conversation with him, and hope he's coming back.
I hope so too. Yeah, we have a lot more. I mean, there's so much more on it. And so this is something, when I started Marshall in the industry, there were a lot of people. They did textile, they did flat stock, they did it all. And there's still people
Right.
like that. And it's not difficult to get started in flat stock. You know,
Right.
most on a manual press, you could get a small vacuum platen attachment. There he is.
Oh, sorry, guys.
It happens. You know, you can get a small vacuum platen attachment for your manual press and do that. You don't need to run it down the dryer. You throw it on a table or on a drying rack, and the color is drying right then. And so it's actually not that difficult. Like Andy said, the hardest part for most people printing plastisol is getting used to going, I'm doing water-based or a solvent-based poster, and you just can't stop. You have to keep going. Mr. Greaves, right there. UV ink on garment with curing on a press and an open head. No external cure. Really? Mr. Kaza, can you comment on that? That would be interesting if he's there and saw that.
Yeah.
So I think Andy, we were talking about flat stock, and I was talking about just how easy it is to get into that, especially as a garment printer. You know, vacuum platens are easy to get for.
Well, you can build them too. I mean, we have, you know, not to pump it, but I will. We've got the plans. You can make a 24 by 36 out of.
Is that on one of your sites? I can put the link up.
Well, if you go on to Screen the World, we have the plans in screentheworld.org. So it's a $30 sign up, but the people, you also get videos and everything. I mean, the reality is you can go, I've got a Facebook page. If you go to the Squeegeeville Facebook page, just look through the photo sets. There's pictures of how to build all this stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're, you know, screen printers are clever people.
Yes, they are.
You may have noticed. So I think in most cases you can kind of figure it out yourself. I mean, you can always put a set of clamps into a tabletop and put some stick them down, but take some cloth first, a little tip. Take some cloth and put it on the stickum a bunch of times to reduce the stick.
Yes.
Otherwise, the first print you pull, you're going to rip the paper off the back of it, and now you're screwed because the ink's everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's great. So how did you get into printing? I know you shared that it was kind of you're younger, you got into doing it, but when did you know that it was like, man, this is something I really, this is my jam, right?
Probably 1979. And I was a musician. I was a mailman when I got out of school, but I always played music. And then I decided I was going to quit this. I had a really good job at the post office, and but I was playing at night in bars, and I decided I wanted to be a rock star more than I wanted to be a mailman. So I set out to just, you know, basically to play music. And, you know, life happened and I got a kid on the way and I figured, okay, I better get a real job. And I ended up at this company. I was up in Edmonton and I ended up at this company driving a truck. But going back to when I was like 9-10 years old and my first introduction to speedball and lettering nibs, my dad was he was a marketing guy, but he was a great, he could draw really well and all this stuff. And he taught my sister and I how to letter, like how to do calligraphy, and also to use brushes, you know. And so I learned how to just on my own. I learned how to do that. So I get this job driving a truck for these guys, and they had 5 retail stores, and they needed, this is all pre-digital, you know, you can't just bang out a banner. They needed signs for their windows for their sales, and so it somehow came out that, I can do that, you know. So I knew how to do a sign writer's bash and all that stuff. And I got a roll of banquet paper and started banging these signs out on the weekends. So then the guy he was the manager of the company, goes, geez, you know, we're getting so busy. We need an advertising manager. Yeah. I said, well, what's that? And he says, well, you could do it. You're a smart guy. You could do this thing. So I started working for these guys doing ads, and I didn't know anything. This is back in the days of waxers and all this crap.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing this. I dove into it, and I was really lucky. There were a couple of people that helped me, through my stupidity. But I did that for about 2 years, and one of the things that happened during it was that we had to. These guys in the stores were always demanding if we were going to do a sale, because we would do a sale every 3 weeks. It'd be the super duper sale or the Father's Day sale or whatever sale. And so I'd always have a graphic that I came up with, and something. And then they wanted to get little show cards so that they can make displays.
Right.
So I got a book from the library, and I got a stupid, it was a black light exposing thing, and
right.
So we were using I don't even know what, I think it was some kind of chromoline product or McGraw something, and you had to
there's a name.
It was purple, and it was on a backing thing, and you had to wash it, and I used to have to wash it in the women's washroom, and there's purple everywhere in this place. So then I'd make my screen with that, and then I'd print these.
It was an indirect film you were playing.
Exactly, indirect
film. So, yeah. So it's probably a McGraw or Autotype, and McGraw's been gone for so long.
Yeah.
I just dated myself real bad.
Yeah. So I started making these things, and I was really fascinated by it. And one of my friends, he said, man, you can screen print? Hey, I got an idea for some T-shirts, So I made a screen at work and brought it home, and we were printing in Edmonton. They had this thing called Klondike Days, and it was kind of like
Is that where they have the race to saw the logs and chop the trees down?
Well, not so. No, that's more like no, that's logger sports. That's a BC thing. In Edmonton, Klondike Days, just because it was, they had the gold rush back then and all.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So this guy had this drawing of 1890s dance hall floozy. And so it was Snake Hips Lulu Klondike Nights instead of Klondike Days. And so we started printing these shirts in the basement, and we sold them like hotcakes. Like they were going like crazy. And so all of this stuff drove me towards really liking screen, but I was still doing all the graphic stuff. And then one day I used to have to go to this place to get film, and it was an actual screen shop.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go there one day, and the guy who owns it, he's printing, and none of his workers are there. And so I couldn't get my film until he finished. So I start helping him, and he goes, hey, you want a job? Like joking. And I said, in a minute. I'd work here in a minute.
Yeah.
And he says, I can't pay you what they're paying you. I says, I don't really care. I want to learn how to screen print. So I went to work for this guy, and, I started learning about screen print. I mean, I was so stupid back then. It took me about a year to figure out that you could mix two colors together to get a third color. I thought you had to use what was in the can.
Right.
And so I worked for him for a while, and then his company went under, and an ad agency bought all his equipment, and they basically bought me with it.
Okay.
And so I went to work at this ad agency, and then they were doing all this real estate development back then. So we were doing all sorts of stuff. And again, pre-digital. So if you wanted color stuff, one-offs, short runs, you use screen printing for it. So I worked for them, and then I moved back here to the island and worked for another place. And then that place, I don't know what happened there. I ended up down in Vancouver, worked there for about a year at a fairly big shop. And I realized, oh, wait a minute, let's see. I'm doing the quoting. I'm getting the job. I'm ordering the stock. I'm printing the job. My guys are cleaning up. I'm running a couple of people in the thing. And then they're actually getting me to go collect the money from the people sometimes. And I went, oh, wait a minute. I'm doing the whole thing here. So I started my own company, and that was in Vancouver in 1980, the end of 84, 85. And we had a World's Fair there in 86.
Right.
And what do you know? I located my shop right next to the World's Fair site.
Oh, how nice.
And
just
I was
circumstantially, it was just there by accident or on purpose?
No, we didn't even know about Expo 86 when I got the place. And so I had this shop, and then I did some work for a local designer, and it turned out the jobs that I was printing were the invites that went out all around the world to countries and to companies to come to the World's Fair. And he won a big award for that, in the graphic design community. And then once the fair was starting to heat up, it was before it opened, but I was trying to get work from him and I couldn't get any work. I was just a little guy, so I got so pissed off one day because I was never getting any of these jobs. And I walked into their main production place, center, headquarters, went up to this guy who was kind of in charge of letting out the things. And I kind of slapped this thing down. I says, if I'm good enough to win awards, if my printing's good enough to win awards and it's good enough for you guys to send it all around the world to invite these people, then why is, you're saying all this work's going to come to all these BC people? How come I can't get any of this work? Mm-hmm. He goes, well, and then next thing you know, I got a couple of jobs from him. And then next thing you know, and again, pre-digital, all of the, you think of all the country, the place, the different locations of the country would have their thing, all their signage. They didn't have digital back then. They didn't have vinyl cutters. They didn't have any of this stuff. So all the signage for these places was screen printed. We'd be printing plexi, we'd be printing whatever. And so we started getting all these jobs from all the different, the provinces and the countries. And because we were the closest shop, and they were panicking because the last thing they do is do their signage, right? They did everything else in the pavilions and stuff. And so the guys I was working with, we made this vow that we would take every job that came through the door. We would work 24 hours a day, and we would take anything that came through. And we finally got to the point where we about 2 weeks before we started turning stuff down because we couldn't handle it. But we were literally sleeping at the shop, and it's all solvent inks, right? So we'd print a run, and then we'd be waiting for it to dry. So we'd put the alarm clock on and sleep for a while, and then wake up. Yep. When the day that Expo opened, we climbed on an airplane and we went to Mexico for a month. We were in Acapulco. We had one of the guy's friends had a really nice place. And one of the other guy's friends had a boat in the yacht club there. And so we had a sailboat, and we just screwed around for like basically a month, and then came back. And after that, my shop turned out really good. I ended up with a partner. We started building equipment in the late 80s. We used to do a big one-arm press called a parapress.
Oh, yeah.
We sold those all over the States. I still see them come up for sale here and there. And then at some point, I saw the light. Some people came into our shop, and we were printing a lot of for gas stations. We were doing these really big Coroplast signs and toppers. And these guys that we used to do a lot of like kind of overflow work for people because we had big machines and stuff. So these guys came in and we printed with water-based ink, some TW water-based ink on plastic. And I was blown away that it worked so well. And so I was kind of I didn't know what I was doing then, but I didn't really want to be in Vancouver anymore. So I moved back over to the island with my wife and the kids, and built a studio and started working with water-based. And that was like, started making art prints. That was the other thing, is that I'd started doing art prints at our facility. And I was kind of going, wait a minute, like you do a really, really nice job for these people, and they come and they pick it up, and then they throw it out 3 weeks later when the sale's over. Like so much promo stuff. Or these real estate guys, they'd come in, we do all these real estate signs, and then, you do this beautiful job, and then they throw it in their trunk and pile them on each other, and they're all scratching up. And I'm kind of going, do I really want to do this? And we started doing these art prints for people, and these things were, somebody would get one of these or buy it. They'd keep it for their life. They'd hand it to their kids. And so I kind of went, I think I want to do that now, And so that's kind of where I went. Did art prints that's quite a while, actually, at that. And then it's all morphed into where I am now, really. I don't know. Well, long, strange trip.
Love it.
So Yes. Oh, Michelle says, I just sent Marshall the presentation about UV printing on shirts.
That'd be
And
interesting. You are going to share that with me, right,
it's,
Marshall?
where is it? I opened it. It's right here. So it's a PDF. So anybody wants this, just email me and I'll happily send it if that's okay with you, Michelle. I'm sure it probably is. And so how many pages is this?
A lot.
It's a lot. It keeps going. So anyway, this looks like there's something he did at FESPA. And
93, Richard said it was.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So, thank you for sharing. That's really great. So,
Thank you.
All right. So we've got.
So if people out there don't know Michelle Kaza,
I was just going to say right there.
Right.
I have that book. He actually signed it for me, and it's on my. It stays on my coffee table in my living room. Mr. Kaza is. We will say Mr. Kaza. I think we would all agree probably one of the finest printers of all time. And I know he hates to hear that publicly, but yeah, we are, those of us that have been around. Yeah, that's all we can say. Yeah. You want to learn stuff, talk to, and when guys, you've had us like Mark Houdre, who went and interned under him. Yeah. He's just incredible. Mark Gervais knows him and learns from him, and we all have. So, Mr. Kaza, thank you so much. So
he calls me the Papa Smurf.
That's awesome.
Because he's the Grandpa Smurf.
Yeah. Well, I love how he affectionately calls himself the old guru, because he is. You know, when he's talking and teaching, we're all listening. And yeah. And you know what? It still goes that no matter where you are in life and career, we are all still just sharing information and teaching.
Well, I think that's really important about, you know, that's a thing to, when you stop learning, you're dead, especially in this industry, It's changing so fast.
Well, I have,
I have the website up. If you want to buy Michelle's book, here is the webpage.
Yep.
I'm sure he would love to sell you one. So, it's right there.
And Marshall, you right below, we forgot one of the other viewers is there from Alberta. Hurley's here with us.
Oh, yeah, great.
Yeah, from Alberta, Canada. So thank you for tuning in. I actually have a Michelle Kaza print that in my office I got to get a new frame for, because the frame.
Yeah, what is it?
I'll go get it. Let me see.
So, Andy, who are your heroes? Who do you look up to that you learn from?
A lot of different people. That's a tough one. I don't want to.
You don't want to leave anybody out, but just who, like, top of mind. I mean,
well, I don't know. The guy, I mean, not so much a hero, but it's an interesting thing. The guy that I went to work for when I was standing there and he said, "Do you want a job?" Oh, there we go.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's a print he did at SGIA with Dubuis. And it's signed by him. So I was early in my career. I knew who he was, but not to the extent. And yeah. So the frame I had is falling apart, so I have to get a new frame for it.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks for sharing that, Alan.
Yeah.
So, and then Michelle says, are you interested in a new article about the control of ink deposit and screen? I will send it. Yes.
Yeah, we're interested in everything. Yes.
Yes. And he says, an old piece from Alberto Bali.
Is that what that is, Michelle? I never knew. So thank you. Yeah, that had to be, I think SGIA had to be about 91, 92, I believe, is where that was. So, yeah, I have had it ever since.
Well, awesome. So, anybody have any questions? Just get them in. We've got about 5 minutes left in the show. And then why don't we just talk about this real quick, since we were kind of talking about it anyway. It's just the importance of learning. You know, and you were just mentioning that, Andy, and I read lots of books. I talk to a gazillion people, and I'm always always looking for the new, and it doesn't have to be new information. It's just new to me. And I love learning stuff and learning about people and how they discovered something or what they did or that type of stuff. And just really just experimenting and goofing around with stuff and being willing to fail. Right. And, and that to me, that's how I've always learned, is to really stub my toe and make it a bloody mess. And then what did you learn from that in everything I do? And I'm sure you can relate to that, can't you?
Yeah, the fellow in that first podcast I did, I mean, these guys could buy any press they want to buy, and use any press, and they could use any technology. But what he said, I said, "What do you like about screen printing?" And he says, "Because it fails fast.
Oh.
It fails fast. So you want to do a thing, you think it up, you do it quick. Does it work? No. Okay, let's move on." Whereas a lot of other print technologies and manufacturing technologies, you have to build the machine first to find out that it doesn't work. And screen printing gives us this ability to fail fast. And so I think that's it's an interesting point. You talk about learning. I'm going to throw it back to the podcast. My next podcast will come out at the end of the month. And it's Tom Davenport and Brett Bowden, and we're talking about Made Lab.
Right.
And so, with the demise of screen printing in our organization, I don't know even if they run the tech lab anymore there, but there's really no open labs that are, that aren't a production facility where people are experimenting or doing things. And so Brett and Tom have put together this place down in Fort Worth that is open to anybody. And the Made, it's oh God, I forgot what it was.
It's pretty incredible.
Modern apparel development and education.
Yep.
Right.
And so they've got, they got a big rock there. They've got a digital head on it. They've got all this really fancy ass exposing systems.
Auto reclaim there. I've been there and saw it. Marshall's been there. I know Richard Greaves was there.
It's really nice. Nice space. And it's right in like the back alley across from where Brett's shop is.
Yeah.
And
I think that's an important distinction to make, is that it's, Brett's got his production facility there.
Yep.
This thing is different than that. This is, and they're going to run education out of there. They want to do experiments. They want to do a lot of teaching with, designers. Like, come on, we always want to hang them, right? Because they don't know how to separate jobs really nice. So they don't know anything about screen printing. We can bring designers in there, or they can't. Well, I say we, they can bring designers in there and show them, what's what. And they can go in with manufacturers and say, this is the problem with your product. How can we improve it? And they can do the testing, and they can fail fast, and they can work their way towards things that work.
Yes. Right. So, all right. So Michelle says that article is 20 pages long, approved by All That Matters. Great.
Very good.
And also, to teach and share is simply my karma, no fees, just pleasure.
Awesome.
Awesome. And Frank says about Brett's thing, awesome looking shop, saw it well in Fort Worth, top notch. So thanks.
And Marshall, above Michelle's post, there's someone new. I don't know who that
Hello,
is.
fellow men. Hey, well, thanks.
Top short hat. Hey, where are you from? Let us know where you're from. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, and all this is only tools, and it's up to us printers to say to the suppliers, that's what we want, not the contrary.
Absolutely. I love that. Andy, now you also help bring out a book for teaching. I love the saying that the one thing man's never learned from history is man never learns anything from history, meaning we don't know what's happened. You don't know where you're going. And you help bring out a book, The History of Screen Printing, too, correct?
That was when I got inducted into the academy, the luncheon that I went to, Richard Eisenbeis brought over this binder from Guido Langweiler,
Mm-hmm.
and it was full of all these old articles and pictures, and I was fascinated by it. And I wrote to Guido, and through a series of fortunate events, we got to the point of let's do a book. And my daughter, well, a couple of things happened. My daughter's a book designer, and so she helped us do the design on the book, which kind of pulled it together. But the other thing was we needed a fair whack of money to make this book. I mean, it's an expensive book. Publishing a book is crazy. It's
Right.
insane. So we came up with this idea where we'd go around and we were going to hit up all the suppliers. And so I approached everybody and wrote them a letter and told them what we were going to do. And I used, I mean, it's a terrible thing, but I used the academy to worm my way in. But it all worked out pretty good. And so, places like NASDAR and Kiwo, all these people, they put money up in return for 100 books when we published it.
Sure.
And it gave us enough to do the publication. We did it in German, one version in German and one in English. And the German one is long gone. The English one, we have a few left, and Richard Greaves and myself, we're still marketing the book. ST, I mean, they were supposedly the publishers, but they never really did anything other than kind of send to Amazon. So they're out of they're long gone. They're gone. That's it. And so we have some of the books left, and we sell a few every week. We've got, I shipped one over to the National Library of Australia, bought one. And most of the universities have a copy. And I'm hoping for the day that somebody actually does a study course on screen printing and its influence on the world, because screen printing gave us all the electronic devices we have. It gave us that.
Absolutely.
It gave us the outdoor advertising industry. It gave us,
printed circuit.
Yeah, printed circuits. There's all these things, and maybe they make them digitally now, but it was the leader in that area, and it continues to be. That's the crazy thing. Is like, we didn't even talk about this, but all the stuff about active clothing.
Right.
This is the next area for textile to get into, is electronic clothing, because 15 years from now, we're not going to be using cell phones as we know it, and we're not going to be doing the things as we know it. Our clothing is going to be picking up signals from us and sending it here and there and controlling our lives. Yeah, I don't know.
You're still going to be wearing 30-year-old T-shirts because you don't want any part of that.
That's right.
You don't have cell phone. Yeah,
that's right. I can't find tinfoil to wrap around it.
Here's where we talk about SOPs, Marshall, and controlling variables.
Yeah,
this is where it comes. So, I know guys like Andy. I've talked to Gene Hash in the industry, who Andy knows, and everybody that works in that electronic and membrane switch field, what we call industrial. Ray Greenwood. Here's where, and correct me, Andy, if I'm wrong. Those all come from engineers and medical companies and stuff. It comes down, and all those electronic printers know how to print hard stock. When it comes to fabric, what is this weird and flexible product? They just really don't know.
Yeah.
So it takes a very special, the overlap is coming where you want to expand a market where it's money is really no object on what you charge.
Right.
It's being funded by a medical company. And if you have your processes and SOPs down, and not like I'm thinking going, oh, no, I have good screens. No. You better know how to control your attention. You better know how to how everything's level. This is something that you can start getting into. I know Josh Wiley was approached by it a little bit because he controlled stuff.
Alan, we should have Ray on the show and redo the whole conversation we had with him and Charlie Toblieb that we had the other day in Fort Worth.
And I actually text Ray when I text Andy. I was hoping both of them, and he didn't get back in touch with me on time. And then I was with a client when he called me, and I tried calling him back. So I did, but we do want to have Ray Greenwood, because I think this is part of, while we talk about textile a lot, the overlap is happening, whether it's flexible apparel like this and sensory, whether it's electronic, even in flat stock and stuff. This is the overlap, and this is what we get in our little tunnel vision, and we do not realize how big the screen print market is and how big as a manufacturing. Now, Andy, you also told me something, and I forget where it was, that here in the United States, what industry, what part of our government is not recognizing the print process?
Well, it was just a thing that came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
The Department of Labor was reorganizing their jobs basically, and they essentially said that printing doesn't exist anymore. And so, and it's, I mean, I look around here up in BC. If you wanted to get any kind of print education past what a high school might show you, there's nothing. There's nothing. None of the colleges, none of the universities. Right. They teach it as an ancient print craft in the art side, and I don't know what it's like down there, but I know that in the industry, what's almost the worst thing in the industry is the inability to find trained workers.
Absolutely.
And yet, so I think one of the handicaps to most businesses is they can't get good workers. We know that we could get way more work if we could rely on our workers to do really good jobs all the time.
Absolutely.
Right.
Look what Michelle
posted. We're a little over, so we want to show some comments, and then we have to wrap up here in a minute. So Michelle says, we don't know where to go, but we go.
That's right.
And Keith says, been in business for over 15 years, but I think the education I've gotten from several of the industry over the last 4 years has been amazing. Thanks to all of you, whether it was trade shows, shirt labs, masterminds, etc. So education will grow your business. You only get out of it what you put into it. Thank you so much, Keith. I appreciate that. And then Michelle has 2 more comments. 25% of screen printing is graphic, 35% textile, and 45% in electronic. A huge future. Sorry, I meant 25 in graphics. Sorry for mistyping. That's okay.
We'll forgive you, Michelle.
And then Mark says we're bringing back our classes next year in 2022. So
and Mark Saldonic is application specialist with Graphic Solutions. So awesome.
Thanks, Mark. All right. So any last minute comments or anything, Andy? Because we have to wrap the show up.
It's been great. It's a lot of fun. And sorry I blipped out there in the middle of it.
Oh, it happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've done worse. Trust me.
We've done way worse.
No, it's been great. It's really good to talk to you guys. And I hope, some of your listeners got a little bit out of it and, reach out, listen to the podcast if you can.
Yep.
And I'm just hoping that 2022 things open up again. I can come back down to the States, drink your beer, eat your food.
Absolutely.
Will you be at Long Beach if they have it? Or
if they have it and if I can go, they invited me down to Fort Worth. I was supposed to be down there doing printing, but I couldn't. You can't get out of here and you can't get back in here. So I'm not going to go through that crap right now. So I'm hoping that, if Long Beach happened, I definitely want to go back there that's with the Ink Kitchen guys.
Yep.
Right. Rick,
Tom, and I had so much fun. And then I want to go to South by and do flat stock again. I want to go over to Europe and do, I hope all that stuff opens up because I'm running out of years, and I want to get it done before I fall over.
And for people who don't know, South by is South by Southwest, which is in Austin, which, I know it from music, but flat stock is part of that where Andy's always down there printing. So,
well, they opened up UK to US like a month ago, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I have a client in Ireland and he wants to come to Shirt Lab Chicago, which is next year. So we were talking about that a couple of days ago. So, if UK's opened up, I mean, Canada's our neighbor, right? What's going on with that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Talk to your government. They won't let us go there.
They're not talking. They don't call us, Andy. Sorry.
They stopped talking to me. Yeah.
I thought it was we the people. Come on.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, let's not even go there. Let's not.
Yeah, we don't want to go there. Yeah.
Hey, look, it's my brother. He's here. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks.
We won't talk about my football team. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thanks everyone for watching. Appreciate you guys, and we will see you next week. And Andy, thank you so much for participating today. We appreciate you.
You're so welcome.
Thank you so much.
All right. Hey, don't go anywhere, Andy. We're just ending the show.
All right.